Hi everyone. I'm Lobsang. I'm the environment researcher of International Tibet Network, and Tashi Delek. Everyone, welcome to the Tibet Climate Crisis talk series. And Tibet Climate Crisis is a campaign that International Tibet Network has been working on for many years. And our work is mainly focused on advocacy, highlighting the environment issues in Tibet, and then we also build and share our campaign materials to our member groups, and we encourage them for coordinated campaign. In today's Tibet climate crisis talk discussion, we will be discussing on the topic of fight for climate justice and the role and the challenges of climate activists. And we will also explore the concept of climate justice and examine why the impact of global warming are not born equally, and how the concept has also influenced the international politics and activism as well. So we are joined today by two wonderful climate justice activists, Ina Maria. Hi, Ina. And Ina is a climate justice activist and artist from Namibia. And then we have Farzana Faruk, and she's also a climate justice activist from Bangladesh. And before we go for our discussion, I would request our viewers to leave your comments or questions in the chat box, and which will be we will be taking in the end of our discussion as well. So I think Farzana will join us soon. So before Farzana uh, comes, I think I would request Ina to briefly introduce yourself, your work, and how did you come to this work of climate justice?
Hi, thank you for having me, Lapsang, and everyone. Um, so my name is Ina Maria Shikongo. I come from Namibia. I'm an artist, a mother, and a climate justice activist. I'm also the co-founder of Fridays for Future Bentuk, where we basically work with children and we do climate action, implementation of food systems, for example. And how I got into the climate justice sphere itself is because um, we have now a lot of oil and gas projects happening, like the one that is happening in the eastern part of the country with the Kavango Basin. And when I heard that, I knew that okay, now it's time to stop being a mentor and working just with the youth, but also time to raise my voice because it is unacceptable that Namibia wants to wants to contribute or create a carbon bomb in a biodiversity hotspot like the Kavango Basin. And that is when I said, no, the fight is on. And that is how I got introduced or into the sphere of climate justice. And I'm very happy to be here. I think there are a lot of intersectionalities, but also very different because Namibia is a very dry country, which is very different from many parts of the world. But yeah, so I'm very happy to participate in this discussion and share what is happening in Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you. I think many of I think social media followers already know Ina, because I remember Ina, we met in Glasgow in during the COP26, and then again in Egypt as well. And one few of my friends call you Tibetan flag, activist, and yeah, I remember. So you were the one, I mean, who I was lucky to meet you, and then I gave you the Tibetan flag, and then
Yes.
during the Glasgow, I mean, you went. We met at the huge protest, and then Tibetan climate, Tibetan flag was all over the news, and we were so happy. And yeah, many of my friends, they were so happy to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so Ina, we were requesting to both of you. I think Ina has just finished her introduction. So, Farzana, first, I would request you to introduce briefly about your work and also yourself, and then how did you come into the work of climate justice?
Thank you so much, activist from Bangladesh. I work with Fridays for Future MAPA. MAPA is most affected people and areas, and this is a Fridays for Future chapter for Global South. But this is not only Global South as in geographical locations, but also people from all over the world who are marginalized. So we wanna work for marginalized people because this is our responsibility is, and this is our the minimum we can give back to the mother earth. I also work with 350.org South Asia team, and especially in Bangladesh, about Green New Deal. So we want to propose a new deal for energy transition where we can work with like renewable energy, and we want to phase out from oil because in South Asia some of the government are trying to say that gas and oil is the renewable option for us now, but we don't see it as renewable, and we want to go for better option which we already have in Bangladesh. And we want to and I also work with UN bodies like UNICEF and UNDP to try to bring the policy and youth voice to the table, and try to work in South Asia with other youth so that we can connect together and work together.
No, wonderful, Farzana. Thank you so much. You being the youth ambassador of Bangladesh and working specifically on climate change in Bangladesh is a very inspiration to many of the Tibetan people. So I think the next question that I would like to discuss over here is before we talk about climate justice. I think I would like to discuss about the climate change impact in your own respective places, and how has climate change affect your people? What are the major environmental challenges that you face in Bangladesh? And so I would first request Farzana and then to Ina.
Okay, I will go first. So I think climate change doesn't understand the border, or we don't follow the border, even though our struggle can be very different from here to Namibia, and it's also same at the same same see floods, and also Bay of Bengal in the southern part of us, we see floods and cyclones very often, but it could be very geographical, but this is not. This is very like related to climate change, because whenever the global warming is increasing, the sea level is also rising, and when the sea level is rising, we are losing our land in the southern part of our country. And scientists are saying by 2050 we will lose 17% of our country, and this 17% is the home of 100 million people. So it is actually impacting people from the this is about life. This is not about the lands, or about all these geographical things and all the graphs. This is also about those people who lives there, those women who have to actually lose their life, their family, and who have to support or who have to like walk to hour to get drinkable water because there is saline water everywhere. So this is not just about like climate, this is also about the socio-economic impact and the impact on the people. And this is not like one aspect. Bangladesh is also facing other aspects, like in the north part of our country we are facing drought because the rain is not continuous. And Bangladesh is the only country which used to have six seasons. So when I was child, not very long ago, I have seen six seasons, but now I don't. And this is because of the climate change, because of the like sudden rainfall, because of the heavy rainfall. So this is also changing our culture which comes with all those seasons. This is like some of the example of how we are facing problem in Bangladesh, but there are even more which people can actually try to know, so that they know what is the exact position of ours.
Thank you, Farzana. Thank you for sharing the whole environment problem in Bangladesh. And Farzana, I think in between there is this breakup of your video. I guess now I think it's all good. Uh, and I would request Ina to go next.
Yes. So, like Farzana said, climate change is literally impacting people, and it's very different. But I cannot see that there are certain similarities. Namibia is a country that is between two deserts. You have the Namib Desert to the west, and then to the east you've got the Kalahari Desert, and it's the driest country in southern Africa. But I think for the past 10 years we have noticed a shift in the rainy season as well. People in my grandmother's village, they will start planting their crops around October because that's when the rain would start. But now it starts in December, meaning that the growing season has become a lot more shorter. And people's crops die because they depend on the rain. It's they don't use irrigation systems. We are not talking about the rural communities. And like now, I think since the last full moon, we just had one rain. So like for 3 weeks, there was nothing. And this is the growing season. So people's crops just keep on dying. People just keep on replanting, but the rain is not coming. So drought has become a huge problem in Namibia. We can see amongst the Ovahimba people, which are in the eastern part of Namibia. I think they're also represented in Wakanda, the one with the red hair, and they have lost a lot of livestock. And they depend on their livestock, not only because of meat, but also the clothing that they wear. It is a culture for them, and like Farzana says, these people's cultures are being impacted as well. So even if you come to the capital city, you see an influx of all these people that have lived off the land for so long and they have lost everything, and now they're living in tents. So they don't have the it is they are losing everything, because when you lose your culture you lose your identity. So that is our main problem. And then, like, during the rainy season we have this floods that happen in central northern Namibia. And the problem with that is that kids can't go to school. The people that are growing, like my tribe, for example, the Awambo people, is that when the floods come, yes, we have frogs, we have catfish, but it also impacts the crops, which is literally adding on to the food insecurity issue again, because the floods literally just, yeah, they just take everything with them, and kids have to stay at home for weeks sometimes, meaning that they are also being impacted indirectly. And then when it comes to the dry season, we have wildfires like literally everywhere, and and it has become more and more, especially in the past 10 years. That is something that we have noticed. I mean, like right now, my spinach, my strawberries, my artichoke is dying, and I keep on watering, but everything is just dying because it's just so hot. The water is not even staying in the ground. So, I mean, so for me, as someone who comes from a food growing culture, it's like, okay, I can see the difference. I can see the impact. I mean, this is one of the reasons we focus on food security and trying to find ways on how we can grow food without losing a lot of water. So it's yeah, it is here, but we don't call it climate change. People, they don't understand the concept of climate change, but people are being impacted, and I think that is where our movement is quite essential, because we have discussions with communities about these things, and as soon as we start talking about it, people realize that, hey, but it's true, something has changed. And I think that is why we strongly believe in climate education, but also talking to our community members to really see how they have been impacted. So, being coming from a very dry country that has experienced severe droughts over the past 100 years, and currently living it, it's scary. And like Farzana says, it is not just about the weather patterns or the rains, but it is about people being impacted, people not being able to grow their food, people being dependent on handouts by government for food. And then even the foods that they get, it's not food that is culturally ours. There is a huge difference between the millets that we grow and the maize that we get. The millet is much more nutritious, and we have ways of storing it for a whole year or several years, and we can't do that anymore because it's just not growing. So it's about people before it's being about the polar bear. Okay, the polar bear is also as important, because of the melting ice caps. They are losing their territory, which is also causing the rise in the sea levels. But the people on the ground, they are being impacted before anything else, and those are the people that we try and work with, try and highlight as well. And yeah, we do what we can. That is all I can say. But climate justice is social justice. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think it's very true that I think sometimes I feel that also, I mean, environment issue is one that unifies everyone from all over the world, because everyone is facing the environment problem. As Frazana and Ina, you shared about environment issues in your respective countries. My country back in Tibet, we also have a lots of environment problems. So though I think right now it seems that we don't have a water resource problem, because Tibet has a huge water resources, and we have thousands of glaciers. But because of the climate change and rising temperatures, the glaciers are melting really fast, and they are melting rapidly. And so when the glaciers are melting rapidly because of the climate change, then it will have an impact on people's food security and water security as well. And it's not only the Tibetans who are dependent on the water that flows from Tibet. Um, uh, Almost like 1.3 billion Asian populations are dependent on the water that flows from Tibet as well. And other than the water security issue in Tibet, we also have environment challenges like grassland degradation, and we also have grassland degradation, land degradation, and then the rise of temperature in a winter time as well. Then there is also a change of rainfall patterns, and which also have impact on the nomads and farmers as well. And so I think as Ina mentioned, that climate education is really really important. And so thus I think when we talk about climate change, then we talk about climate justice. And Ina said that climate justice is about social justice. And so there is this understanding that the historical responsible for climate change lies with the wealthy and powerful people, and yet it disproportionately impacts the poorest and most vulnerable communities, and especially on the indigenous people, the local people, and people of color, women, and disabled women as well. And so I think this struggle is really, really important. And so now my next question, first to Ina, is as you also briefly mentioned about the climate justice. So what does for you, I mean, can you elaborate more on uh, what climate justice mean to you?
Um, for me, climate justice is it's like you mentioned. It's about holding those accountable that are polluting. I mean, if we look at the fossil fuel industry, for example, who are responsible for most of the resin emissions, they are making billions. You know, have you seen the figures? It's like billions, 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 and yet they are responsible for so many crimes already. They have destroyed so many homelands. I'm not just talking about Nigeria or Ecuador, you know, it is literally happening everywhere. Even now in Canada, they're trying to cover up some oil spill. And these companies are still allowed to continue. And yet they are responsible for past destructions. And at the same time, they are now trying to sell us that gas is green, but it's not. It is a fossil fuel. So accountability is very important. I mean, we can also talk about the debt, for example, which rich countries are using as a pretext to, to continue suppressing our governments, because we can't pay the debts, like our currency is not in US currency. So now our countries, in a way, they are sort of in this trap where they have to continue producing and extracting, but that extraction is not even benefiting the people. It is not benefiting the people. They are mining it, they are poisoning our lands, they are poisoning our waters, and the resources go out. So what stays in the country? Nothing. And that is why I say it is literally a continuation of colonialism. There is no difference here. I mean, like what's happening in Kavango with Recon Africa. You come from Canada, and then you decide that you're going to take over someone's land, so you can put your drill there, so you can, start looking for a resource that we should be moving away from. So climate justice is just not about us reducing. It is just not about the 1.5, but especially about the human rights violations that are happening on the ground. Last week, a defender in Ecuador was killed, and that is like daily news. We just don't hear about it. Why are people being killed for defending their lands because they want to keep their cultures, because they want to keep their ways of living? Who says that we have to develop the way that the West has developed? We are very different from them. And we don't want to be like them. I don't know why they think that we should be like them. No, we don't want to be like them. We are very happy living our cultures. So for me, climate justice is literally about holding those to account, whether they like it or not. We know that our governments are all in their pockets. And I'm not just talking about our governments. I mean, I'm also talking about Joe Biden, for example, or Emmanuel Macron, especially when you see what is happening in Uganda with the East African crude pipeline, which is also called ECOP. Why is a French company putting a pipeline around the biggest lake in Africa? People are being displaced left, right, center. And then you ask yourself, when is this trend going to stop? When is it going to stop? When are the rich countries going to stop colonizing us? When are they going to stop taking it all away from us? They've already tried over 500 years ago. They did not manage. And now they're coming for the final Holocaust or what? So for me, climate justice is really about I want justice for my people. And that means you have to be held accountable, Shell or Total or Chevron or Recon Africa, whomever you are. and leave us alone. You know, this is our planet. We also have a right to say what we want. Our children won't have a future. If you want to come see elephants in 20 years' time, there might be none because of what energy poverty. What energy poverty? Rich countries are now coming to Africa looking for gas, using our energy poverty as an excuse. When we know that even that oil or that gas is not going to stay here, it will be shipped out. Who the one who will be making the money is the investor and the investors, the banks, the pension funds, you know, the same people, but not the people on the ground. So it's a very sensitive issue, but it is a human rights issue as well. And because we, the marginalized people, and I'm not just talking about myself as an African. Right now, I am talking like on behalf of MAPA, for example, people in the most affected people in areas. We keep on being sacrificed by these companies. Why? Our governments are allowing it. We go to COP, we are making noise. No one is listening. They don't want to listen to you. They don't want to hear the truth. And the fact is that they are killing us on purpose. So climate justice is a human rights issue as well. And we need to speak more about it. And that is why these companies have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable for every single murder that they have committed. They have to be held accountable for every single ecosystem that they have destroyed. They need to be held accountable. So that is what climate justice is for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I share my comments, I think I would like to go to Farzana and share your views. What climate justice mean to you?
Thank you so much, for already touching upon like a lot of issue. Climate justice to me is first of all what Ina said, but also climate justice is to me is the right of the marginalized to like let the marginalized know that this is the world is not ours to hold. This is like ours as in like one person's or two persons to hold. This is not about top 1% having the 99% of the world's resource, or we using uh, our resource allocated for a year and this is what climate injustice. And climate injustice also part. So climate injustice is women rights issue, it's children's right issue, it's overall human rights issue. And I want to share example to make my point. Like in Bangladesh, the southern part of Bangladesh, women have to remove their like reproductive organs, or like they have a lot of issue in their reproduction system because of the salinity in the water and the infection. And they have to like walk 2 hours, and they are the responsible one to get those drinking water, so they don't usually drink those water. So this is how this is related to women's. And then children, I always talk about it. There is a picture that a guy who's like 11 maybe, like drawing his books so that he can read. He doesn't understand climate politics, he doesn't understand what COP is, he doesn't understand which top 1% is making him do it. But he all he know is he wanna study, he wanna study, and his books has been flooded, so he's trying to like just draw it. So he a person not knowing that why he is the most sufferer, even though he didn't not do anything to actually make this problem, is what injustice is. This injustice is my country, which is polluting only, like which is only 0.4% making emission, is the most affected one. My country, who can't actually have enough money to decide whether we should do development or we should actually do adaptation, but we are facing the adaptation or like climate problem every day. The country which actually is one of the best in risk reduction, because they have no other way to survive, to fight back, because the like money is not with them, is what injustice is. And fighting against all of this is what climate justice to me.
Thank you, Farzana. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's very true from my understanding of my work inside Tibet as well, how women and children are most impacted by the climate change. And then Ina also talked about the rich companies coming, and then in the name of economic development, there are so much of development in terms such as mining and damming. And then what do the local people get? So when the local people, they do protest, so they get jailed, and such is the case exactly happening in Tibet as well. Because right now, sometimes from my personal I think view is that I feel sometimes I envy two of you, because I think it feels that you have your own independence, whereas Tibet is still under occupation and we are still fighting for colonialism. But then when we look at in terms of environment issue, even though you call your country as a free country, but then in terms of climate change problems, it's same, it's happening everywhere. It's happening, what is happening in Bangladesh or in Namibia, it's exactly happening in Tibet as well. We see lots of Chinese mining companies are coming, and then local people don't get the job. And even if they are Chinese and Tibetan work the same at the mining area, Chinese are paid much higher than the local Tibetan people. And then another issue that I would like to raise here is also about nomad relocation. And the government says that nomads are the causes of ecological or grassland degradation in Tibet, and they are forcing the nomads from their land in the name of ecological protection or poverty elevation. So I think this the whole fight for climate justice, sometimes it feels like so huge that like I can't do anything. But then sometimes it's like it is also about it's huge that we can't ignore, because people are getting affected. And so then, as Ina talked about earlier, accountability and climate education, I think these are really really important. So my next question over here is that yes, I mean we have big companies and rich countries are getting all the benefits, but then we also have such as UN climate change meetings, COP meetings, and so I see lots of climate justice activists attending these COP meetings. So my question to Ina is that how has this climate justice movement or the climate justice activists they have impacted or they have shaped the global international negotiation in terms of environment protection, or in terms of they work in climate change.
Okay. I think as an activist from Africa, it's quite important to go to these events because our voices matter, even though our voices are mostly still ghosted, and also tokenized. But we do leave an impact because we get to confront the people that we need to confront. Even though they still ghost us, it still has an impact. I think for me, the biggest example I can use is like the loss and damage finance facility, because it was a big fight to get it on the agenda, and then the first week it was taken off, and I think all of us activists and from all over, we united behind this, and they had to put it on, like within the last minutes. And even the protest was so amazing because at the time when the loss and damage protest was happening, Joe Biden was driving past. So everybody turned to Joe Biden, loss and damage finance now. So, and so it does have an impact because we are speaking about it. Obviously, these industries and these governments are very clever, especially like in wording. They're all these lawyers, so they know how to like make their words sound nice. So they take your words and then they just add on like a different meaning, and and it makes it so difficult, like for us activists on the ground, because you don't always know what is going on. But one thing is for sure is that activism does help bring about change. And even if you look at history, nothing came from just sitting down. Women just didn't start voting overnight. It was a fight. And even in countries like the USA, even like the rich countries, women just started voting less than 100 years ago. And that was a fight. When you look at Rosa Parks, when she sat in the bus and she said, "I'm not giving up my place to this white man." Yes, it started a movement. The African Americans started boycotting the buses. They were walking until that law was abolished. So even this fight, it is not for nothing. We know that we will get it because the only thing that brings about change is unity and to continue fighting and believe that you will make it. It doesn't matter how big Goliath is, like in the Bible. David killed Goliath. So an ant has got the power to damage an elephant, for example. So it just has to grab the trunk. So don't undermine your size. Don't undermine the size of your movement or your height, or because you feel like no change is not coming. No change is coming, and they know that it's coming. And yes, there are a few examples, but there are also examples from the past of why advocacy is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Farzana, do you want to go next?
Thank you so much. So Ina already said how like we can do big thing by very small, but again I will go for some examples. So in COP26, like COP, the biggest climate conference of the year, and COP26 was even bigger because in 2020 COP couldn't happen because of the COVID-19. So COP26 was even bigger, and in Glasgow it has the biggest number of young people in the like on COP delegation, not maybe with the government but with the people, and this is all thanks to the civil society who supported young people. And why they supported young people? Because they know young people are bold, young people can actually ask anything, and they can count. And you know what even bigger happened this time a lot of country has to put official young delegation in their party delegation. So that means those young people could go inside the negotiation room, track down the negotiation room, came back to us, give us the information that how the movement we were in the field could design the negotiation, design the movement or campaigns in terms of those negotiations. And this is the 27th COP, and this is the first time youth are like in party delegation. But this is also we could do it in 27 years. It at the same time sounds a lot, but also if we are following like all those negotiations, we know that it takes years to change anything, but we could do it very like short time, because climate activism is going on for years, but we made it big scale in like 2017 or 2018, while 120 plus countries came to the road at the same time. And now people are saying, okay, youth are being bold and we need to listen to them. So this is a kind of a good start and good sign we could do. But also youth and young people and the support and allies of all those young people are making it even more creative. I like Ina a lot because of how she make like activism about culture, about artistry, and this is actually making things even bigger, making like all those eyes which doesn't look at the climate movement look at us and see that this is actually connecting our culture, this is actually connecting our roots. And those can make this climate movement even bigger. And I am really hopeful, because this is the only thing we have, hope. And I'm really hopeful that in a very like close time there will be even more negotiation platforms where we can give input. The climate activists who are on ground, the grassroots people can give more input. And this is not only about the international big conference, but also local level conferences, local level like reports, and even like any policies government are making, they will bring more grassroots because they're currently seeing the importance of it.
Thank you, Farzana. I think as both of you raised about the importance of the importance of attending these big meetings, especially the role of climate activists and how they could impact on negotiation. For me, I think personally, it's very inspiring. And to see that at least there is some way that we are giving pressures to the government, and it feels like it gives lots of positivity, energy, and so yes, I think it's also very important that visibility and agency is very very important over there. But then my understanding is that yes, I mean, I feel that sometimes when it comes to climate activists, we are unified and everyone is present at the UN climate change conferences. So to Ina, my question is that when it comes to the activism and activist, how united the whole activist group? Is there different voices where, because I think when I was in COP27, I felt like there are not many people from Asia, especially from South Asia, at the COP meetings, and so even there. So and then, I mean, how united, other than the UN climate change conferences, how united the activist groups, or are they in terms of fight for the climate justice?
Um, there is unity, like within every family, there is fighting going on within every single family, and the unity is there. Obviously, to something that had to be worked on, and also because we still have the colonial past. People that don't want to listen to us. So they would prefer to listen to a German or a Swedish or English activist rather than an African person or a person from Southeast Asia or Bangladesh, because we make them uncomfortable. With it is when I look at the comments that most climate deniers make when it comes to Greta or Louisa's social media post. It's there is a big disconnect. So when we are in a space, we take and we hold the space. Obviously, it is something that we have to fight for as well, because nobody wants to really listen to us, because what we have to say is the truth, because we are talking from our own experience. Don't tell me that climate change is a hoax. It is happening. People are dying, people are losing their livestock. Come over and I will show you, and stop talking nonsense. So yes, we still have to fight to get there, but we are getting there. And it is not about movement or person. It is something that is still linked to colonialism. You know, it's still something linked to the fact that people that don't want to hear the truth. I mean, even if you read history books, for example, in England, how many of them know how many countries were colonized by the British Empire? They don't talk about that. The Germans talk about the genocide they caused in Namibia. No, they don't want to talk about it. So obviously, when we are in those spaces, we hold the space and we remind them. And that, of course, is something that they don't want. And we are learning from each other. So whatever is happening is in every single family. You will see that mother and the son, they are fighting. The daughter and the mother, they're fighting. But they will still come down to the table and they will clear out issues. But when it comes to tokenism or like favoritism, me, I would say blame the system. Blame the system that has put those inequalities in place. And you can go into education, you can go into media. I mean, how many rock and roll artists, black artists do we talk about? We just talk about Elvis Presley. Why don't we talk about the ones who were before Elvis Presley, the black singers? So it is something that is systematic. It is systematic, and and that is why the decolonization movement is so important. And I think within the Fridays for Future movement, for example, we are working on it. It is a work in progress, and we are learning a lot from each other. Yeah, I think that is what I can say about unity, working together. And yeah, I mean, that's how I met Farzana, We met physically, not only on Zoom. It's beautiful. It's bringing us, all of us together. And before we were like in our little corners thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? What is happening? And then you realize that, hey, I am not alone. They are going through the same thing. Okay, let's do something about it. And that is what is beautiful about our MAPA, our movement. And that is what I love about it, is that we inspire each other. Yeah, thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I think even like from my experience or my colleagues' experience, as I think both Ina and Farzana knows that we don't have a Tibetan representation at the UN climate change conferences because we are under occupation. So there is no special seat for the stateless people in the climate change conferences, and we could come because we are in exile, and then we don't have we are officially not invited, so we are just as observer. Even for the accreditation, we need to ask our friends who are in some universities, and so they provide us the accreditation as well. And from my story, I think is that sometimes when we get chance to speak to people, I feel that okay, so if we could reach to these different venues, there are people who are ready to listen your story. So that's why even I felt that it's very important that your representation, your voices should be heard in these big meetings, and especially the big governments, the rich governments, the colonizers. They should hear us because they should be accountable to the people as well. So my next question is to Farzana. So when you do your work in terms of the climate justice, what are the challenges or challenges that you face, and what are the roadblocks that you have to face in your work?
Thank you. So I will also connect a bit with your previous question to Ina, that there is a lot less representation from South Asia, and this is also because the problem we face in activism. So in South Asia, what we really see is the visa process is like hardest job. So we, before we go to any conferences, we have to prepare for like following all the negotiation tracks, and which country is talking about which, and which country is accepting which, and which country is rejecting which. So this process is very
Hello. So sorry, Farza. I think Farzana has internet connection problem. Uh, okay. I think she will come back. I hope. So I want to ask the same questions to Ina. I mean, what are the challenges that you face when you do your work on in terms of climate justice?
Wow. Yes, it's well, I like to take on the big boys in diapers, meaning the fossil fuel industry. That's why I call them the big boys in diapers. And in my work in Namibia, I have been facing, yeah, intimidation from the company, from the government. But for some reason, I just know how to tackle them, including Total, all of them. So, um, but one of the biggest challenges I feel is that our governments and these companies have something going on, and it's very, very difficult to pierce through them. And and again, I come back to the colonial debts, and so there are a lot of policies in place that make room for these companies to just come and exploit our people. And then, like the judiciary system is also a problem. The judiciary system, because they keep on, it's like these people have money, so they can just buy any lawyers they want. I mean, like last week, we were sitting in a room with the minister. They had like 7 lawyers there. We had like our 3 lawyers, you know? It's so, it is not proportionate. I mean, like now our communities were challenged. These companies have to pay the legal fees for this company. 500,000. I mean, what is that? That is nonsense. Utter nonsense. So you face intimidation. And then you've got the judiciary system that is literally protecting companies. Then you've got the UN conferences where they don't even want to see you or listen to you as a person from the global south. You know? So we still have this racism going on even within the COP space. You can see how uh, how the leaders of the G7 countries are welcomed at COP compared to how our leaders are welcomed. You know, so this colonial issue is very difficult. I mean, for me personally, as an activist, I know that I have the balls to take on the bull, but that's also because I grew up in a war, so we were taught to be soldiers, and that is why I know that I am not afraid. But I know that the dangers are there. Like my colleagues in Kavango, they keep on facing constant harassment, being detained. I mean, with me, they can't even do that. They try to do that. I filmed them very quickly. I don't play, and I'm not afraid of them. But the dangers are there, and the threat is real. And you ask yourself, why is it that people are being sacrificed so others can continue destroying our earth, so they can continue poisoning our water? For money? No. So I think those are my biggest yeah, challenges within here. And obviously, because we don't have resources, and what we need is to be able to speak to our people, to our community, again, climate education. Turkey is the only country that I know of that has climate education in its curriculum, and I feel that every country should have that. It's not us, the people, that should be doing it, but it should be a national curriculum. And even we need to decolonize the United Nations. It is not at all. The United Nations have got their own agenda going on there. Hmm? If you know that, like now there's the water conference coming up. How many of those oil companies are destroying our water sources globally? How many? And yet the member states are still sitting there. We are just talking about Vladimir Putin and who. Let's talk about everyone, everyone. So the decolonization process is very important, very, very important. And so the challenges, they go beyond just um, they go beyond judiciary or personal safety or people not taking you seriously. And now you've got this thing where you have trolls that come online and then they try and make you look stupid until you tell them, come to Africa, and then we can talk. And I mean, Twitter is allowing this. Twitter is allowing people to bully us. What's up with that? Climate change is real. People are being impacted, but our lives, they don't matter. So when we talk about challenges, let's take it all the way to the top, all the way back to colonialism. And that is why decolonization is so important. And learning about each other's cultures, learning about each other's ways, and trying to find a solution together, because their rivers are drying out, you know. Their rivers are also drying out. Their forests are on fire. With us, it is human rights. With them, it is climate. But it is there. And now they've also started this new thing of calling people terrorists when they want to challenge companies like now Erin Brokovich. Hmm? Why is the US going on about her being a terrorist if she's only trying to protect her communities, or the communities that were affected by this in East Palestine? So the greenwashing is also a problem. I mean, I can add on because Farzana is not here at the moment because of her internet issues. So I mean, if you want me to stop, I can stop, but I can just, I mean, I can speak for myself, but okay, there she is. So I will let her speak now, because but yeah,
Thank you.
but greenwashing is a very big problem. Greenwashing,
Mm.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, wonderfully. You said it so beautifully that I don't know how to summarize the things. I hope we have Farzana here. Farzana, can you hear us? Maybe Farzana, what you can do is you can switch off the. Okay, okay. I think yeah, she has a internet problem. And we are also coming end of our discussion as well. And Ina and Farzana, both of you have. Okay, hi Farzana, can you hear us? S- Sorry, you have to go through this. I mean, the internet problem. So you can also like very briefly, I mean, continue with your previous answer. The the challenges that you face in your work, and then we will and
Yeah,
after that.
yeah, like Ina already mentioned a lot of it. I just also want to add, like, at the same time, when we have to think about and funding for activism work is very hard to like access, even though climate change has currently some amount of like funding different in different sector, but people who works in pollution and biodiversity even have worse of it. And this is really a big issue because we need to like pay our bills as well. And then also, like, if we are making activism work, a project and we have to pitch it.
Yeah, I think she has a really, really big internet problem over there. I think, yeah, I think we got almost all her, I think, views over here. So I would like to conclude here by thanking both Ina and Farzana as well. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, and it has been very, very inspirational. And both of you have highlighted the importance of climate activism and why we should go forward and continue to work for that and fight for that. And then both of you have also discuss about the decolonization, which is very, very relevant for the Tibet coast as well. And then climate education in the universities and unity among the climate justice work, and then also about importance of advocacy, and then having this hope, and then supporting each other and also learning each other's culture for in terms of environment protection. So thank you so much, and so I would like to end over here saying thank you also for our viewers, and thank you for joining us. And we have a Tibet Climate Crisis social media accounts in Instagram, Facebook, and also in Twitter as well. So please follow our social media accounts. And then thank you so much. And bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you for having us on behalf of Farzana as well. Thank you so much.